Let's talk to Lance Foreman, who's a former MEP and businessman, and also Pablo O'Hana is with us. He's head of communications at the European Movement UK. Lance and Pablo, you're very welcome to talkTV this morning. How are you doing?
Very good.
Great stuff.
Very good, thanks.
It's really interesting because Simon Wolfson was, of course, a big Brexiteer. He is a Conservative peer, a member of the House of Lords. He is someone who is the head of Next, which is a massive business. He was a prominent advocate of Brexit. But this is what he has said. We have got people queuing up to come to this country to pick crops that are rotting in fields, to work in warehouses that otherwise wouldn't be operable, but we're not letting them in. And we have to take a different approach to economically productive migration. Lance, what do you make of those comments?
Well, first of all, as you know, I was a big Brexiteer too, and I never had a problem with immigration ever. But I think Simon's actually got this one wrong, because if you look at the actual statistics, the Home Office produced figures which showed that to June this year, in this year alone, we had over 1.1 million visas accepted into the UK. It's an absolute record. There's no problem with people coming here to work. That is not.
We still have over 1 million job vacancies in this country. 100,000.
But hang on a second, Peter. Before COVID, we had 3 million people on benefits, right? Before COVID, 3 million. We now have nearly 6 million people on universal credit. That's where the heart of the problem is. And just think about this. You can claim, if you want, you can claim up to £23,000 a year on universal credit. The average wage in London is about, not the minimum wage, the average wage is about £30,000. After tax, that's also £23,000. Why would you work when you can just get that handed out? And the figures prove it. The numbers have jumped from 3 million to nearly 6 million people on universal credit. It's a disincentive for people to work.
Pablo, the problem Lance is saying is that people aren't working in this country. It's nothing to do with immigration. What do you think?
Listen, I to some degree welcome these comments because it's becoming increasingly clear that even people who voted Leave recognise that this Brexit isn't working. And we're hearing this from all across the country, different sectors, right across our regions as well. And, we even have a map on our website where people can submit concerns they have, and we are seeing it in multiple businesses. But the reality is listen, I'm a patriot. I love our country. But part of loving something is recognising when it needs help when something isn't working. This Brexit experiment of sort of Fortress Britain, it hasn't worked. Not because we haven't tried. Four prime ministers have tried, but because it doesn't suit a modern world. And we can argue all day about the benefits of migration, but the reality is that Brexit hasn't worked. And it's not about what a millionaire business owner what he needs to continue turning over billions of pounds per year. It's actually about what Brexit is doing to our communities across the country. And it's costing us £1 million per hour.
It's costing us £1 million per hour. What's your evidence for that?
That's ONS figures. That's from the government. And that is when that filters down to communities, it means that your prices are high. It means that your energy bills are high. So it isn't really about, whilst I welcome what this guy has said, it's not about that. It's about how it is hurting our communities, and that is what we've got to fix.
Lance, Brexit is costing us £1 million an hour apparently, and it's hurting our communities.
So much nonsense about it there. First of all, if you look at our growth figures compared to Germany, and you take it from the period immediately before the referendum to right up to date, we have grown as an economy at 6.9%. Not a lot, but it's 6.9%. Germany in that exact
Well, we're contracting.
Same time,
we've got the GDP figures out this morning, 0.2% contraction. The economy's smaller.
I'm taking the period from the referendum to current day. We've grown at 6.9%. In that same period, Germany grew at 5.9%. We're not doing brilliantly, of course, but nor is Europe. Europe's also in a mess. And to blame the energy crisis on Brexit is a complete joke. Europe has got its hands tied. They've basically given up their energy independence to Russia. That is part of the problem. That's nothing to do with Brexit at all. People blame everything for Brexit. It's not Brexit. There are problems around, not just here, USA, in Europe, right across the world, there's sort of problems.
Okay.
And we actually have, we have the second lowest debt to our GDP in the whole of the G7. Our inflation levels are lower than the EU. You cannot blame Brexit for this. Yes, we do have problems. We've got lots of things we need to sort out.
Okay. Pablo, what do you make of what Lance has been saying there?
Listen, this argument always comes back to facts and figures. This is about people. It's not about these statistics that people can twist and turn all they want. For the record, to be clear, my statistic came from the government. That is, so let's just be really clear about that. But when we were in the EU, we had the benefits of working across the continent in cooperation. So whatever side of this argument you sit on with migration, we had the benefits of being able to work with them to kind of control our borders and to make sure that this was.
Sorry. Our borders were not under control when we were in the EU. That was the point of leaving the EU. There was free movement.
Right. And how's that worked out?
Well, I'm not saying it's worked out badly or well. I'm saying you're incorrect. We did not have control of our borders.
Things have got worse since we've left the EU. And the fact is that once we left the EU, we were less in control.
So what do you want to rejoin the EU? We've got John who's sent us a tweet saying Brexit is not an experiment, it is a reality. So Pablo needs to accept that and move on. The UK will never rejoin the economically and politically corrupt European Union.
Okay, well, I mean, I think for the United Kingdom in recent political times to talk about political corruption is a little ironic.
At least we can sign off our accounts.
Sorry?
At least we can sign off our accounts, unlike the EU. Time and time again, auditors fail to sign off their accounts. The EU is, by definition, a corrupt institution.
The EU has an enormous amount of good for this country and across its continent. I would never argue that the European Union has been perfect. No one can argue that any country is perfect. But once again, the reality of Brexit, I mean, I agree that Brexit is a reality. Listen, we had the referendum, and the reality is during that referendum is that we didn't have a sensible conversation about migration. It has always been, get it down, put a cap on it, it's terrible. We've never had a real, sensible, honest conversation about how migration benefits.
Lance, there is a point there from Pablo, is there not? That there is good immigration and there is bad immigration. I feel intensely relaxed about people who want to come to this country, who want to do the jobs that we don't want to do, or alternatively do the jobs where there are vacancies. If doctors want to come to this country from India, for example, I am very, very relaxed about that. That's what I'm not happy about, is people coming across in small boats illegally. We do have serious problems in our economy, and we just have people in this country, Lance, don't we, who just don't want to do the kind of jobs that there are vacancies for.
Yeah, and that's nothing to do with immigration at all. I have no issue with immigration whatsoever. In fact, 6 million applications for settled status came through into the Home Office. Most Europeans that came across either pre-Brexit still remained here. And in fact, even after we officially left the EU, in that 3 months at the beginning of 2020, between January and March when COVID happened, we were still getting more applications. People wanted to come to the UK from the EU, and they were coming. Immigration really is not the problem. Brexit is not the problem. We do have all sorts of problems in this country. Our political class have completely lost the plot on both sides. They don't have any real commercial understanding of the sort of policies they're putting in place and how this is affecting our economy.
Okay.
We need to have growth. If you want public services, you need a strong private sector.
Okay.
And all the political parties are killing that.
Thank you, Lance Foreman, and thank you, Pablo O'Hana. Lance is a former MEP and businessman, and Pablo O'Hana is head of communications at the European Movement UK. Thank you to both gentlemen. Spirited debate there. What do you think? 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Gary in London says, Peter, where is the TV recruitment drive? There is nothing out there to galvanise British people to help. If there were public messages about needing to pick food, I would give time to do this. All money and effort still going on COVID advertising. Well, thank you, Gary, for that. Thank you also to Vera in Banbridge, who's been in touch saying